We're talking about billions and billions and billions of dollars. It is an ungodly sum of money. It's money leaving the country in suitcases, literally stashed into suitcases, taken in airports, taken overseas. We're talking about a systemic problem here, particularly in these blue states, where the taxpayers is being robbed blind. You got to feel like if you work hard and pay taxes in this country, you're just getting ripped off left, right, and center.
So there you have our senator here in the state of Missouri, Josh Hawley, talking about the fraud that is existing currently in blue states. What are we going to do about that? How are we going to get to the bottom of it, root it out, and make sure that it doesn't happen any longer, that the federal taxpayer isn't being taken advantage? And let's also pay attention to the Minnesota taxpayer to make sure they're not being taken advantage of any longer either. Michele Tafoya has something to say about that, and that's why she's running for the United States Senate in Minnesota, and she's back with us on the Annie Frey Show. Michele, thank you so much for the time to talk to you today about this Senate campaign. We're really excited to hear about it.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for the opportunity, Annie.
Of course. You've got kind of that outsider coming into the swamp, I guess, perspective as a Minnesota resident. What makes you want to dive headfirst into the swamp, into the United States Senate?
Well, you just played a soundbite from Josh Hawley that is critically important. We are on the cutting edge here in Minnesota of fraud, taxpayer fraud. Money that taxpayers earned and entrusted our government with has been stolen from them. And I would urge anyone in your area, anywhere in the United States of America, to kind of review their pay stub now and then and ask themselves where all those tax dollars are going. And when you find out that just here in the state of Minnesota, at least, and I underscore that, at least $9 billion of it went to fraud, went to pay for lakefront properties, jewelry, cars, exotic vacations at the hands of these criminals who managed to get the government to go along, our government, Tim Walz and company, to go along with this. Now, we know it's not limited to Minnesota, but the fact that it happened here in my state enrages me no end. And the fact that we are pretty darn certain that our governor, our attorney general, and our lieutenant governor knew all of this was going on.
Yeah, I've asked that question to several guests over the last probably 4 to 6 weeks. Like, what's worse, a governor, senators, mayors who knew this was happening and didn't do anything about it, or where all of this was happening under their nose and they had no clue? You think it's both, or which is worse here?
Which is worse? No, I think I don't think that much money can change hands without people knowing, right? I mean, if it's a few bucks here and there, you maybe cite it, you attach that to oversight or just not paying attention. But this is billions and billions of dollars, and this is money that was supposed to be going toward kids' meals, to autistic centers, to child care centers, to adult daycare centers. And, for people who know the name Nick Shirley, this independent journalist kid in his early 20s came to Minnesota and went around and exposed all of this. It was within a matter of days that our governor, Tim Walz, said, you know what? I guess I won't run for that third term. They knew he was up to his neck in it, and he had to step aside. And now, as a lame duck governor with nothing further to work for, he is just kind of torching Minnesota on the way out.
It sucks to see it. Michele Tafoya speaking with us right now, candidate for the United States Senate in Minnesota. You also are host of the Michele Tafoya podcast. People can learn more about your campaign at micheletafoya.com. I'm thinking to myself, Michele, I live across the river here in the state of Illinois. So I work in St. Louis. This is a red state. We've got 2 great senators in the state of Missouri. Yeah. Illinois, you just, when you know kind of the grassroots of what's going on in your state, and then it becomes national news. J.B. Pritzker has done that for the blue state of Illinois. You're like, will somebody please do something about this now? What's it like for Minnesota? I'm sure you've been very connected to what has been happening there for quite some time. What's it like for Minnesota to kind of be front and center on this stage right now? Back? We've got Michele Tafoya back. Oh, man, we've got her back. I think there are aliens involved. Either that or we think Tim Walz is playing with the line here.
That's what I think. I think Tim Walz and Peggy Flanagan cut the line somewhere along the way.
Yeah, well, we're back and we're gonna, you know how it is to do live television, live radio. You just roll with it. It's part of the deal.
It's part of the deal.
Grateful to have you back. We're speaking with Michele Tafoya, the candidate for United States Senate in Minnesota. MicheleTafoya.com if you want to learn more about her campaign, potentially support it. I think it would be a dollar well invested.
Thank you.
So let me talk to you. This is what I always want. Like when I've got my Illinois grassroots hat on, I'm always like, there's so much good about Illinois. I'd imagine there's so much good about Minnesota. And it's not ever being talked about. And when you become the senator from Minnesota, those are the things you're going to need to champion. Tell us about the goodness of Minnesota.
I moved here over 32 years ago, and I've raised my family here, married my husband, who's a gopher through and through. When I moved here, and really only until about 10 years ago, the lakes are beautiful. The seasons, as you know, are beautiful. The people are wonderful. We used to boast some of the most excellent schools in the nation. We can't do that anymore. Less than 50% of our kids are reading or doing math at grade level. Now, I know that's a problem in a number of places, but let's look at Mississippi, who used to struggle with academics. Mm-hmm. They're now setting the pace for all of us. It's been brutal, and people keep throwing money at the problem, and the scores keep going down. Crime is up here in Minnesota while incarcerations are down. We've got these left-leaning judges who are just not holding people accountable. The leadership here has gone from really strong Arnie Carlson, Tim Pawlenty, Norm Coleman type leadership to Tim Walz, who we know is a complete leftist, if not a Marxist. And so it's really been tragic. We've lost a lot of our residents who have gone to more friendly climes, and have escaped the incredibly high taxes that have been imposed on us. Those taxes should make people even more angry, given that all of this money has gone to these two-bit criminals who have spent it. So there is so much to love about Minnesota. Some great companies, Target, it's General Mills. I could go on, but I'm telling you that certain companies are leaving. The political climate, the tax environment for businesses, not friendly. We've got to turn it around, and we really believe we have a chance to do that.
Yeah, I think Minnesota right now, we've had some conversations with some grassroots reporters from Minnesota through the fraud headlines and, of course, the ICE situations, the protest situations. There seems to be a bit of a sentiment that, like, right now people are leaning into this moment, and they would really like to see a pivot, a significant pivot for the state of Minnesota. Do you think that right now is a time where a Republican can actually win a Senate seat in Minnesota?
I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running. I looked at this race for a long time. I knew close to a year ago that Tina Smith was going to vacate the seat. And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. I have put that much thought into this, and I lately just became convinced we can do this with the right candidate. I've survived a lot of high-pressure environments, and you can say, being on a Super Bowl sideline in front of millions and millions of viewers having to deliver under pressure, those kind of situations I'm built for. So I feel like we're built for this moment. I know there are a lot of frustrated Minnesotans because of the current climate and because of the taxes and because of the fraud. So, yes, there are people who I think are willing to step across the aisle, and certainly independents are willing to vote. So I wouldn't be in this if I didn't firmly believe we could win.
Michele Tafoya speaking with us. Last question. You're painting a really beautiful picture of the state of Minnesota, and I always think it's important to give people running for office or even representing in elected office the opportunity to talk about the positives, because they so rarely become part of the discussion. Those protests that are national news, we see the agitators there, some tragic deaths that have happened because of the emotions that have been stoked therein against ICE with the protesters. I'm curious how much you believe there is outside agitation, outside funding, descending upon Minnesota there, Minneapolis. Here in St. Louis, Ferguson, that's a stone's throw from where I'm sitting right now. So it's kind of the genesis of that. And we had people associated with our radio station who were there on the ground covering it, and you just knew that this was not St. Louis. This was not Ferguson, and it kind of takes on a life of its own. Do you feel like there's a lot of outside influence trying to turn Minnesota inside out?
We often hear the name George Soros.
Yep.
I want to present another name. The other name is Neville Royce Singham, born in the United States, now living in China and protected over there in spite of some very shady dealings he was involved with. There's been a lot of research and journalism done around this guy that he is pouring tons of money, not just into the Minnesota protests, but in protests all around the country. There are people who don't like this country, and I'm putting that very nicely, and they want to see it torn from the inside out. And so they will pay for these protests to happen. There have been some very well-organized protests here. I know there's been some organic, and believe me, the 2 deaths here, they shouldn't have happened. I ache for those families. I truly do. They shouldn't have happened. But had Tim Walz and our Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey assisted these federal law enforcement agents from the get-go, provided crowd control, and done the bare minimum, these things likely would not have happened.
Yeah.
But the chaos was, in part, I think the fans were flamed by the resistance to this. Thank you, Mayor Jacob Frey and Governor Tim Walz. The resistance. I've talked to law enforcement leadership. They have said if we had been allowed to assist, these things likely would not have happened. So you have to put the blame on our, I don't like to say leadership, our lack of leadership as well.
Yeah, that's well said, very much so. Michele Tafoya, we're going to watch your campaign. We're rooting for you down here in the lower part of the Midwest. Does Minnesota? We had a conversation about this. Does Minnesota consider themselves Midwest?
Oh, yeah. I think we call ourselves Upper Midwest.
Upper Midwest. Well, we are happy Midwesterners with you. We say "ope" a lot, and we eat a lot of casseroles. All the good things. Love to talk to fellow Midwesterners. We appreciate that.
Love it. Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Please come back. Talk to you again soon.
Will do.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. MicheleTafoya.com will not be stopped by internet crashing in the middle of an interview. We love talking to her, have loved talking to her about other issues that we have come up upon. She's talking right there about covering a Super Bowl. She has had an incredible career. And honestly, no reason to have point of pleasure to talk to her about this, but I actually got my communications degree in television radio so that I could be a sideline reporter. Like what she did and did so successfully is what I originally got into media to be. And then here I am, and now here she is. This is pretty incredible. I would love to see her win that seat in Minnesota. She'd be so welcomed in the Senate, at least as far as this fellow Midwesterner is concerned. Candidate for United States Senate in Minnesota, Michele Tafoya, MicheleTafoya.com. Quick break. We got Wiggins America coming up in about 14 minutes or so. And Eric Schmidt and Catherine Hanaway, 1 o'clock and 1:30. We've got great guests lined up for you throughout the course of the entire day. And Jack Posobiec back on the Annie Frey Show at 2:05. We're going to talk about that halftime show. I know I said I wasn't going to, but then Jack said he'd come on the show. So you're darn right I'm going to talk about it. We'll be right back. Don't go away.